This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 223 of the Dressage Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Equisketch, Fleeceworks, and Neue Schule.
This is Reese Koffler-Stanfield from Georgetown, Kentucky.
And this is Philip Parks from Fergus, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show with our normal producer, Glenn, back in the saddle, I guess.
Yeah, it seems like a while since we've been on together.
I know, we haven't recorded a show together for a while, and it has been too long.
It had nothing to do with the fact that this is the Dressage Show. I know what you're thinking, Reese.
No, not at all. No,
it's just the funnest show on the
It is. That's right. That is true.
It.
You guys make Dressage fun.
We do. Well, this is after our week off, the Paris show last week, and we're back in schedule. So it's nice to be back, guys. Have you guys had a good week? Or 2 weeks, I guess.
Been awesome. I mean, the weather's been nice. The horses are great. Perfect.
Super. Well, we are getting ready. We've got, 2 more big shows of the season. This is our sort of local championship this week at the horse park. So everybody's getting ready. And then in 2 weeks, we go to the regional finals. So we're all really looking forward to that. And then I think everyone's going to really look forward to a little bit of downtime. But for a couple horses, and then a couple horses go to the national finals. So we've got a busy weekend around here. So I can't wait to report and let you know how it goes.
The other thing I want to know now that we have Glenn back is how his rescue horse is doing. Do you have an update for us there, Glenn?
Well, yeah, we got a name for him now. His name's PT Scooter because we had called him PT for poor thing. Everybody that saw him said, "Oh, what a poor thing," because he was starving to death. When we got him, he was probably about a day away from dying. And we always name our horses after Muppet characters. So he's named after Scooter, who was the backstage sort of helping hand in the Muppet Show. And his personality fits him perfectly. That fits the name. But he's getting fatter. He's probably gained about 120 pounds, which for a little 12-and-a-half hand hackney is pretty good. And he's doing his little pony attitude starting to come out now, and we're ground driving him and getting him ready to hook him up to a cart here when he gets enough weight, put it back on that we won't kill him.
Oh.
So he's doing good. He's looking good.
Yeah, sounds like he's doing well.
Yeah, he's doing great. He's fun. He's a fun little guy.
Cool. Oh, it's nice to have a rescue horse or animal of any sort, cat, dog, horse. There's a lot of satisfaction you get from helping horses and animals in need. So, Glenn, you rock. And I can't wait to meet PT Scooter when I'm down there this winter.
Well, by then, maybe we'll have him in a cart and you can go for a drive.
Oh, that would be so fun. Yes. I'm excited already.
So, Reese, what do we got on the show for today? What's coming up?
We have a great show today. I think we're really going to look forward. We have Hillary Moore-Hebert from Dressage today. She is the senior editor, and she is on the show. She was sick for her last monthly segment, so we're actually doing the August segment today. So we always love having her on. She's got a great tips for us from the magazine this month. And then we have Emily Wagner. She bred and owns Wakeup. She just won the Markel Developing Young Horse Prix St. George on him, and you're going to love her. She is so cute. So really looking forward to that. So, Philip, what's going on in the news these days?
Well, again, it's just, American-centric news because all you care about is yourselves, but that's okay.
Ooh, that was a little bit of a dig.
I got to give my little dig because, we don't have enough Canadian, we just don't have a lot of Canadian news, but it's okay. It's okay. Hopefully soon we're going to have somebody from Dressage Canada on to talk about what's going on with us, so sorry about that.
We hope.
But the USA Young Horse Program has been revamped to provide more chances for horses to be selected for the World Championships, which is great. The United States have totally revamped the selection procedures for young horses seeking to compete at the World Young Horse Championships by naming 7 CDIs across the country as selection events. The new procedures were created by the U.S. Equestrian Federation's Dressage Committee, Young Horse Subcommittee, to provide more chances for combinations to seek to compete at the World Championships. By using CDIs, Scott Hassler said, the U.S. young horse coach provides an international flair being added by non-American judges, as well as more opportunities with 7 selection events across the country scheduled for 2014 instead of in 2013 there were only 2 on the calendar. So that's great. Hopefully America will be sending more horses to the World Young Horse Championships, so the American horses can be, pitted against the world in a great big show, and I think that's great for the U.S. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think that'll make a big difference. It's really difficult the way it is now to try and qualify. And like they said, there's 2 competitions. And as we know, and Emily put it well in her interview coming up shortly, any given Sunday, with young horses, it's nice to maybe have 1 or 2 tries at it, getting ready because they are babies, yeah, and they're learning. So I think that'll be great for everyone here. So absolutely.
And it'll be nice for spectators. I mean, more of a chance to see really nice young horses. I think they're a passion of mine and Reese's as well. I think they, sometimes are just as exciting to watch as like the Grand Prix. I mean, we love to watch the Grand Prix horses. They do lots of fun tricks. But the young horses are special in their own way. And it would be great for, breeders and young horse owners to be able to show off their great, the great young horses being bred in North America, in these CDIs, and a chance to take them, across the ocean and like I said, just compete them against the great horses in Germany and in Holland and in Belgium and in France. I think that everybody should have a great, a chance to showcase their horses. So awesome.
Absolutely. Well, right after this commercial break, we are going to get started with Emily Wagner. She's going to talk to us a little bit about the young horse and her win at the Young Horse National Finals that were held last week.
Judy, I've been hearing a lot of good reports about this new TheraWool product line that you introduced earlier this year. Tell us what's going on there.
It's basically opened a whole new customer base for us, and it's made the product affordable for people maybe who either didn't want to use sheepskin because it does require a little bit more maintenance, the sheepskin does, than the wool, or people that just couldn't make that stretch. So it's been great. It's really, really durable, as the tagline says. Is great for daily use, beautiful enough for show.
And I think that really explains it all in a nutshell, because it is a lovely pad to look at and feel, but yet it's still an affordable pad that you can literally go to the Olympics in this saddle pad.
Yes. We worked really hard to make sure that we developed the right density and the right length. And so it took us about a year to get everything exactly right, and to make sure that when you washed it, that it didn't felt up or turn real hard or ball up. And it's a proprietary blend of product, the way we've done this to make it work.
Quality saddle pads from Fleeceworks. So folks, when you go to your local tack store, ask for Fleeceworks TheraWool pads by name, and if your local tack store doesn't have them, tell them that they need to speak with Judy at Fleeceworks. Just go to fleeceworks.com, and you'll find all of her contact information there. And thanks for stopping by again, Judy, and keeping us up to date on what's going on over there.
Well, it is our pleasure this evening to have Emily Wagner, the winner of the Markel Young Horse Developing Prix St. George this year. Emily, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Philip and I have both seen Wakeup at the Young Horse Symposium, but can you tell our listeners about Master Wakeup? He is a wonderful horse.
My wakey. Wakeup is a black 8-year-old stallion now. He's by our stallion Wagner, who's a Weltmeyer baby, she's actually a registered Canadian sport horse, but her daddy is Macho, who's a macho. So he's a very elegant sport horse type. I think he's drop dead gorgeous, tall, dark, and handsome. But yeah, we bought him when he was about 3 weeks old. He we had a partnership with Bev McLean in Wichita, Kansas, and then through the partnership, we took him over when he was 3 weeks old and have had him ever since. And it's amazing because, you know, I had Magnus, his father, as a young rider horse, and now I have him going through the young horse stuff, and I just feel really, really lucky to have a horse like him. I could never have afforded a horse like him if it hadn't been through the breeding. So it's really fun to have him. He's always been a part of the family, and growing up, watching him grow up, it's a real treat. So.
Yeah, I think that's pretty special when you have a foal all the way into, you know, you're riding him now at Pre-St. George level and hopefully going forward to Grand Prix. Can you tell us a little bit about your season and how you qualified and, you know, how it went this year for you, obviously, to a great success?
So in the beginning of the year, we took him out at the first show, the Kansas City Dressage Society show, and just showed him his first I-1 and the developing Pre-St. George test. And, you know, last year, the qualifications, there were really high percentages to get in, and he came out and showed at that first show for 73%. So I was like, wow, he's so much more solid than last year. He feels great. And then I wanted to do a couple CDIs to try to qualify for the Festival of Champions, which is now in Kentucky.
Yay.
So I took him to the CDI, and the scores weren't so high. So I thought, well, let me go again to just a level 4 recognized show to try to get my last developing horse score. And he again got a 73. So I felt super, super confident that, you know, he was going to be in there and going to definitely hold his own. But at the end of the day, you go there and you're like, there's so many really good horses and really, really good riders that the chips can fall wherever they want, you know, like everyone can have a good ride and a bad ride any given Sunday. So it was still, we came in ranked second, and another person also had a 73% average. And so going in, I didn't feel like, oh, we've got this or anything. I was very much like, oh, there are a bunch of good horses trotting around that warm-up ring. So it was still nerve-wracking.
Oh, I bet. So tell us about your tests at the championships.
Well, we came from our show, our CDI in Colorado, and I actually think that worked out really well for me because I was just in the ring a lot. You know, I was in the ring those 3 days out in Colorado, and then we came to Kentucky, and I gave them Monday, Tuesday off while we drove there, and then Wednesday, just a light ride. Thursday, we started schooling again, and then Friday we went in, and, you know, from just getting off of the Colorado trip, I kind of knew where I wanted to be. I knew that I needed enough expression, but I needed that expression to still have the harmony. I knew that I needed his frame to be really a higher, more in front of the vertical frame that I'm used to riding him in. Usually I kind of say, you know, let's keep him a little deeper in the neck. So I knew that that wasn't going to be okay. So I think I really had, for me, a good place in my mind because I had had all that input from those judges in Colorado. But my ride on Friday, I was really happy with. You know, he was really with me. I felt like it was a good, clean ride. The only little bobbles we had were the one, like we went for the free walk. It was an awesome, or extended walk, sorry. Extended walk across the ring. It was an awesome extended walk, and I got a little greedy, and I was like, okay, let's really go for it. And he, like, half jogged a step, you know. It was like a little bit of a jig. So, you know, the one judge really cut me down for that, and the other one still gave me a 7.5. But, and then I felt like, you know, the medium extended canter wasn't his best. He can have amazing extended canters, but it was a little bit, he just got a little strong through it and was like, hey, let's go, extended canter, woo! Instead of like, oh, let's really work this thing. So I had those two little bobbles, but I still was, you know, obviously elated with the score and super happy with him. And then on Sunday, he was just, it was perfect because I was running a little bit early, or the test was running a little bit early on time. So I had a little less warm up than I had planned for, which worked great in my favor because he was just a little tired. And so when I went in the ring, he was just exactly right. And then perfect to the point that like I could push him for those extended canters and say, yes, go for everything you have. And in the walk, he was super relaxed and just marched across the diagonal. And that's a really good test for us. You know, that test is very much that you do one thing, extended canter, then you bring him back to the pirouettes. Then you do your big 3 tempies, and you bring him back for 4 tempies, and then bring him back for the half passes, a little more collected. And then push him forward for the three tempies again, and then you go to trot, and then you push him forward again. So that back and forth is really good for him. And so I think that test really flows for him well. So it was everything worked out really to my favor that day. It really just worked out. So. And then
Emily,
was so exciting.
No, it's wonderful. Tell our listeners what your scores were.
Well, it was funny because Nico, the announcer who does most of the shows, was like, "Hang on, everybody, you're going to want to hear these scores." So I was like, "Wow, that's exciting that Nico even says that." So then he says, a 74 from the side judge, a 76 from the judge at C, and then a 78 from the judge on the end. And I was just like, "Wow, I haven't ever gotten those scores. That's amazing, And to get it here on this day, what a better day to get it, So it was just, I was just jumping up and down, screaming. It was just.
That's phenomenal.
Awesome. And the one thing that I always want is to people to know how awesome my Wakeup is. He's just such a fantastic horse. I'm so lucky to have him, and he makes dressage so much fun because everything is so easy for him. So when I got the comments from the people watching, just sweethearts that have seen me since I was a little kid and seen Wakeup since he was a gawky little 4-year-old, watching them come up to me and say, that just looked like a harmonious ride. That looked like it was fun for both of you. You guys really looked like you had fun out there. That, to me, is just like icing on the cake. What gets better than that, right? And he is so much fun to ride, and it's easy enough for him that he's just like, oh, this is easy. Let's go have some fun in the ring. I'm a little bit of a show-off. Wakeup is a little bit of show-off, and he's like, yeah, let's just show off. I'm like, let's do this. And that, to me, is awesome. So it was a great feeling to be there and have that ride.
Oh, it's awesome. I am excited for you and was, you're such a wonderful person that when we got the scores, I was so happy for you. But also, Emily, we didn't tell us a little bit about your history with Wakeup, because he is very much a success story from the Young Horse program. So can you kind of tell us all a little bit about your history with him?
Yeah, and not only the Young Horse program, but the American Breeding program. And I think that's what's so special for everybody, is that he's not some big fancy horse that's imported from Europe for a ton of money. So he was, we took him, he qualified for the 4-year-olds and did the Markel 4-year-olds, and he did okay. He was a little bit of an unfocused stallion, not super strong behind. So he did okay. I think we ended up 5th. Overall, but that was my first experience at the championships, and it was just great to be there and be even 5th. I was flattered at that. So that was his first outing there. And then as a 5-year-old, we actually qualified for Verdun and went to Verdun, and at that time Verdun and the Young Horse Championships were together, on the same, I think they were 2 weekends apart or something. So we were over in Germany during the Markel Championships here when he was 5. So we didn't compete in the U.S., but we competed at Verdun, and he did great. We ended up 4th in the small tour in the small final, and we're 0.02% from getting into the big final. So I was really proud of him. He handled it great. It's a huge environment, and for me to be there, that was an amazing opportunity. So that was really special of us for us to be able to be representatives of the U.S. That was the first time I was really in a foreign country representing the U.S. in dressage, and that was a huge milestone for me. I spent a month over there and did that with Dr. Muller and his team, and it was fantastic. But then as a 6-year-old, we came back to Chicago again for the Markel. He qualified, and he came in ranked, I think, top 5 or something, and then we finished tied with Caroline Rothman, and then they broke the tie for him because he's bred in the United States. So then he won the 6-year-olds, and then as a 7-year-old, he went back to the developing horse and in the Pre-St. George, and he was reserve champion. And I was so proud of him there because he just, looking back, I can now say, wow, he was so much more immature, But he did a fantastic job. We didn't have super clean tests, it wasn't the rides of our lives, but he still ended up 2nd, and I was thrilled because that was a super pack of horses there last year. And then this year he came back to the developing Pre-St. George and he won it. So it's been really every single year he's done something with it, and it's great because I get the feedback from everybody. I remember when, and that to me is really special. So it's a great program. It's super what they do, and you really feel like they're channeling you up the way and giving you the opportunity to be in front of Scott Haffler and Debbie McDonald and letting those people see you, I think is really important, especially for us in the Midwest, because Scott's not coming here anytime soon. So it's great for us to have that, one, in Chicago, and two, that it brings all those people together to look and see what does the U.S. have to offer right now in young horses.
Now, Emily, we can hear in your voice how much you love your horse, but we all know that there's no such thing as the perfect horse. Is there, have you been able to overcome some challenges in his training, and do you want to talk about that a little bit with us?
I love it. Good answer, Emily.
Yeah, maybe it's perfect. All right.
If I ever had to create a horse, like if I got to on those video games where you can create your character and pick out the hair color and he would totally be my horse. Yes, when he was a younger kid, I remember last year at regionals, there was a flagpole and the little chain was bouncing against the flagpole, and everybody came to watch Wakeup, and here Wakeup was gallivanting around the ring, taking off, and everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, don't fall off! Please don't fall off your horse!" And he wasn't the most focused, let's say. But, that's part of what makes him special, is that he's got a little bit of fire and a little bit of, everything is pretty much in the training has not been a super challenge. But, yeah, there's times it's yes, you can get a little bit more off your forehand, get a little bit lighter in the reins. But, every horse, I have my developing Grand Prix horse that I'm using for the Brentina Cup, and I look back on his journey because I broke him and brought him up, and I look at Wakeup's journey. I'm like, everything for Wakeup is so much easier that it's not really fair almost. Poor Willie had to work so hard to get here, and Wakeup's whatever, this is fun, let's keep going. And of course he's not perfect. Of course, I still need to be able to really own every step in the ring and really be able to control the frame and the tempo perfectly and really keep him super balanced. Sometimes I feel I have one front leg out here and one hind leg out here, and his movement is so exaggerated and big that it's really kind of hard to organize him sometimes. But, if that's my biggest complaint, by golly, let's not get too picky.
Yeah, well, I think that's great. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the because you've been for a few years at the national championships, how that's developing and the environment there, and kind of some of the sights and sounds that you saw while there?
Yeah, so it's held at Lamplight. It's been there ever since I've known it. It's been at Lamplight, and this year they just redid all the footing, and I think it's an absolutely gorgeous venue. I love Lamplight. I love that it has a tranquil feeling about it. You can get the big horse show feeling, but at the same time, there's grass for the horses to eat. There's gorgeous flowers everywhere. The footing is fantastic. So I love the venue of Lamplight, first and foremost. And then the championships by themselves, fun because really it's the best of the best, and you start to see people reappear, Phyllis Martin's there, and I love hanging out with her, and she's a great gal, and it's fun to see her every year there. I wouldn't see her otherwise. So it's fun for us to go back, and it's kind of like a camaraderie sort of thing, because I think with young horses, there's a little bit of almost more forgiveness, because, if you have a super young horse, you're lucky. That's great. That's awesome. But at the same time, they're still babies. They can still make their mistakes. They can still, shy at the opening. Debbie Hill's riding her 4-year-old, has a beautiful ride, and then he's all of a sudden scared of the gate in the front. And it happens. That's young horses, and you feel for her, and you're like, poor girl, that sucks, but we've all been there. So I think there's just a great camaraderie among the people, and that's a lot of fun. And then I think it's fun because people come to watch the exciting young horses, and that's something that you don't get at a lot of horse shows, dressage shows. It's not a spectator sport, but I think there's a lot of people who come and watch, and breeders who want to see what stallions are producing, and I think that's a lot of fun. I do have to say that the first 2-3 years we went there were like Lamp Point sponsored parties every night, and it was like super amazing. And this year and last year has been a little bit more low key, and that's not a bad thing. It's not a negative, but it feels a little bit more, just low key. And I don't know if that's because I'm more used to it now, and before it was just also big, flashy, shiny lights to me, or if it is because it's not as special anymore. But I do think that the atmosphere when you're riding and when you're having your horses there is fantastic. I wish that like the first few years when we had parties every night and everybody got together, and there was an Elvis impersonator one year and he was terrible, like he was the worst Elvis impersonator you've ever met. But it was still fun because we all got together and laughed at the Elvis impersonator. So that's funny. And the last 2 years I haven't felt like that's been as big anymore, but I still think it's a fantastic show.
Well, you have been a success through the whole program, and we're so glad to have you on, and we can't wait to have you on next year to hear how you win the Developing Grand Prix. Wouldn't that be really, really awesome? So
would be a dream come true.
I'm looking forward to seeing you in Kentucky and to see Wakeup in person. I haven't seen him in a couple of years, so I'm really looking forward to that. Emily, if our listeners want to get a hold of you online, how can they find you and Wakeup?
I'm really bad. I don't have a website. I don't, call me, sort of thing. But, or Facebook, it's really the only thing. We don't do a lot of advertisement or anything. And yes, I know I need to, and I should get on that, but we're more old school. So.
That sounds great. Well, I'm sure people can find you on Facebook, and thanks for coming on the show. And we look forward to having you again in the future.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, guys. Well, on our Facebook page, before we get to our next guest, a person by the name of Apron Betty said, I wonder if that's really her first name, Apron. I don't know. But what was
Don't get sidetracked. Okay?
What was the name of the bit company you hosted last month? Link, please. Well, the bit company was Neuschula, and I thought, we should mention it again because obviously people were interested in finding out more about it. And actually, Philip, you said you got some emails about that too.
Yeah, actually, somebody emailed me about wondering the same thing, how to find them and what was the name. So I thought maybe we would just spell out the name because it's, I guess it's, a German name, and so it's got German spelling. So maybe we could spell it out for our listeners.
Okay, well, that name is Neue, separate word Schule, but their website here for the United States is Metlar, METLAR -US.com, Metlar-US.com. And if you ever don't know what we talked about in the show or where to find a link, go to our show notes at the Dressage Radio Show. Just go to the show notes at dressageradio.com for that episode, and it has all the links for the different things.
I think it's really helpful. Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't mention the show notes every week enough, but you can find out kind of information about our guests and all kinds of stuff on the show notes. It's really helpful.
That's correct. Yep. So that's probably the easiest way to do that. But just so, and now I know that you started using one of their bits on a new horse, didn't you, Reese?
I did actually. No, it's my FEI mare Winnie. I've been having some issues with the double bridle on her, which is not typical. Normally, it's not as earth-shattering, but this mare is a mare, and she's decided that sometimes she doesn't like the double bridle. And I put one of their bits in after listening to the first segment we had. I thought, I'm going to try this, and one of my students had one, and really helpful. I used the Verbinden. I've been using that bit on a couple of my horses, and she goes really well in it in the snaffle. So I had tried it with the Verbinden, that Bradoon, and a different in the same curb bit, and she just was not having it. So I got a Neuschula curb bit, and really, really big difference. She's still not 100% in it, and I think for her it's just going to take some time to get there, but big difference with the bit. Huge. So I was excited after having it. It was great. So again, everyone, you spell it Neue, Neue, space Schule, Schule, Neue Schule bits, and give them a try. Both Philip and I have used the bits and really like them. So let us know how it goes.
Love them. Helped quite a bit. So I can definitely recommend them.
Well, it is our pleasure to have Hillary Moore Hebert, senior editor for Dressage Today, on for our monthly segment. Hillary, how are you doing this week?
Hi, I'm great. How are you guys?
We are great, and we're sorry. On our last show, you were sick. So, are you feeling better this week?
Yes, I am. It's amazing with riding how when you get something, I had a cough and everything, it really puts you down. So I'm glad to be back.
Good. Well, we are super excited to have you. So we are going to talk about, we get you twice this month, which is awesome. And we're going to talk about last month's magazine. So can you get us started on some tips from the magazine and things we can look for?
Yes. So as you guys all know, Dressage at Devon is coming up just around the corner, which we're all very excited about at the magazine because we go every year. And we went ahead and we highlighted David Marcus, and we did an interview with him about how he came back from some obstacles that he had before he was at Devon last year. And that included he had one horse that had colic surgery that was his planned horse for the Olympics. And then also, as some of you guys know, at the Olympics, he was disqualified, which disqualified the team. And he came back with both of those horses to the Grand Prix at Devon and won Grand Prix classes with both of them. So we talked to him and asked him how on earth he did that, because I probably would have been in the fetal position crying, never wanting to ride again. And it was really interesting where he just said that his tip, if you feel like you've had a big hurdle, whether it's health-wise or, with your sports psychology kind of stuff, your show savvy, if something happens in the ring, that you really just have to focus on the day-to-day training and just think about your goals and don't let it bother you and just keep on keeping on. And I thought that was great advice.
Well, I love it when you guys have a little bit of Canadian content in there. So I'm looking forward to reading that article about our Canadian rider, David Marcus. And maybe you could tell us what else is in the magazine.
Yeah. So speaking of, other countries, we are starting off a 2-part series with Louise Robson, who is really cool. She trains thoroughbreds that are off the track, and she rides Queen Elizabeth's horses, and she retrains them in dressage and has had great success with them. So she did a 2-part training article on how she retrains the Queen's off-the-track thoroughbreds for dressage. And her tip, which I thought was really neat, is she rides in a neck strap with horses as they're learning balance, so that as they are kind of finding their own balance, even though she's a very skilled professional, she's not afraid to, just grab onto that so she doesn't get taken along with them and then also throw them off balance. So that I thought was a neat tip.
I read that article, and I had a horse today that I actually was thinking I really should have had a neck strap on, because it's a newly off the track horse, mare, and she's sensitive. And I thought, that neck strap would have been really helpful. And plus, as we all know, I'm totally obsessed with the royal family. So I read that article twice because I just thought it was cool. I'm not going to lie.
I mean, there's a lot of respect to be had for the people who are retraining horses that were bred for one job and then using them on other, because I love the thoroughbreds. One of my first horses was off of the track, and there's a lot of really great horses there that unfortunately get sent to auctions to slaughter and all this. So it's a bit of a shame, and I think there's a lot of them that can do another job and have another great career and be a great horse for someone. So it's awesome that there are people out there doing that. I think it's great.
Absolutely. Come to Kentucky. Sorry, no, I was just going to say,
Okay,
come to
yeah.
Kentucky where I am. I can get you one. Sorry, go ahead, Hillary.
I was going to say, and the thing that's really neat, we actually did a sidebar with judges talking about what has happened with the trends, and I thought it was neat where they were saying, and this I thought is sort of a training tip, our dressage tests have strayed away from the strength of the walk having value, and the thoroughbreds really tend to excel in the walk over the trot and canter versus the warm bloods. And so as the tests are getting rewritten, there's more emphasis on the trot and canter work in some of the tests. You can end up having that struggle just with the math of the test, based on where you have sort of the stereotypical strength based on your breed. And I thought that was an interesting thing to think about, and how when you're riding and looking for your points, if you have a horse that has a stronger walk and maybe not so much of a stronger trot and canter, saying what can I do for my preparation and in my test riding that can pay attention to that.
That's a great tip. We're getting ready for a horse show this week, and we were talking about that this week, and especially because I have a young rider doing the Grand Prix, and the walk in the Grand Prix, the extended walk and the collected walk are double scores. So it's worth more than the passage transition after the collected walk. So, it's a good thing to think about and not forget. We all take breaks in the walk. I do it. I find myself like, relaxing. I'm just walking. I'm taking a little break, but it really shouldn't be. And we should all really remind. So that's a great tip. So Hillary, what's the next one?
Okay. So the last tip that I have for you guys, I think is really interesting. We've kind of been doing this thing where we've been talking a lot about balance in the different issues, and we're continuing this with a neat article by Dr. Ulrich Seal that talks about how your balance affects your horses. And it's very interesting. The exercise that they suggest is to take a pole, like you'd imagine someone who is on a tightrope walking, like a long pole, and hold it in both your hands and then one of your hands, and try to do the exercises that your horse would do to give you a sense of where the balance is. And they said you can feel if you're off balance and leaning in, it's like that pole is dropping to the side, and you can see how it kind of sucks you in if you're doing a circle if that pole's not balanced. And so I thought that was really interesting to think of how your balance affects the horse, but from that horse's perspective.
Oh, I like that a lot. I mean, you got to kind of try and feel how the horse moves, and I this is a big problem with some beginner riders and stuff, like kind of overriding the inside rein and not pushing the horse around the turn, and just doing it yourself and trying to feel like when you make a circle, all the weight, where the weight shifts, right, and how to do a better job by counteracting, right. I think I try and tell my students that when you use your inside rein, how does that affect what happens with the rest of the horse, right? Like, how are you counterbalancing everything you do with an equal and opposite kind of reaction? I think it's a little bit physics and just really takes a lot of thought to think about, what you're doing and how to not make more of a problem by doing it, right?
Well, and I think it's interesting where you talked about with that inside rein, because we always kind of tend to want to do that motorcycle turn on a bending line where we crunch our inside down from our armpit to our hip, and we kind of have our hip fall out a little bit too much, and it starts to throw the horse outward. But then you use that inside rein, and if you sort of do it right now in your seat, you can feel how too much of that also then aggravates that same thing. It kind of encourages you, even if you weren't before, to crunch down to the inside again, throw that opposite hip out, and it all kind of creates this self-fulfilling prophecy of imbalance.
I love that visual of the motorcycle turn. I just wrote it down in my notes from the show. I was like, motorcycle turn, that's a great analogy and a great way to think of that, because that's exactly what it's like. That was excellent. Yeah. I like that visual. Absolutely. And we all do that. I mean, again, that's a common thing that you have to be very, very careful and always keep an eye on around your circles, around your corners, that type of thing. Because again, that is something that everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
And
just
I
an extra
did-
point with. Oh, sorry, Hillary, but I was just going to say that an extra point with that is just think about changing speeds in turns, and you can do that on the ground as well without a horse or on a bicycle or something. You know, like when you go faster, how does that affect the speed? When you go a little bit too slow, you also lose balance. So yeah, just take the horse out of the picture and try and keep your own balance while doing some of these things. Is again interesting to think about.
Well, I was going to say, I can't remember what month, but it stuck with me enough to remember the visual of it. Our back page solutions, where it's those quick tips that have the drawing with it. And we had one where they said, as you're riding, really picture it as though you have a toddler on your shoulders. And think about, as you're riding, what kind of things would you need to do to keep that person above you upright. And if you start to lean into a turn, you could never be able to support someone on your shoulders if you were leaning into the turn too much. And how do you sort of feel like you constantly are upright enough that you can support that? And that's something for me that I keep with me and remember to help think about balance.
That's a great one too. And going back to the back page of the magazine, the solutions page, I have a client that in her tack room, the wallpaper is that page. She tears it out every magazine and she puts it on the wall. And it's really interesting to go into her tack room and look at it because they are visual. That's the point of them. And it's a great thing to look at. It's the last page of the magazine every month, and it's great to take a look at it and or tear out a few that you like and keep them around because they are very, very helpful items that come every month. Well, Hillary, thank you so much for coming on the show this evening. As always, I love your tips, and I write them down every month as well. So I hope everyone enjoys the magazine. And Hillary, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
They can go ahead and visit us at dressagetoday.com. And if you're interested in getting in touch with anyone on staff, you can just go to the Connect with Dressage Today that's at the lower part of the website.
Glenn the Geek here. The life of horse person is hard enough, and we all hate doing the required paperwork, and unfortunately many of us never get around to it, and it just piles up on our desk. That is about to change thanks to the EquiSketch Records app for your iPhone or iPad. My wife and I use it to track our horses, and we absolutely love this thing. EquiSketch Records is the most thorough and complete equestrian records app on the market today. We love this app because you can track your farrier work, your dental, your coggins, medicines, worming, and so much more. And you can get reminders on your device when all of these things are due. You'll never forget a worming or shots or farrier visit again. But it not only tracks your horse, you can also manage your horse shows, including individual events. You can manage riders, including lessons and memberships, and so much more. And you can sync it between your iPhone and your iPad, and all of this for the price of a couple of cups of coffee from Starbucks. Search for EquiSketch Records in the iOS App Store or go to equisketch.com. That's EquiSketch.com. EquiSketch.com. Well, guys, we have an email that I thought maybe you guys could tackle here, seeing we're talking about young horses. Fits right in. It says, Hi, Reese and Philip. I'm enjoying listening to the episodes of the Dressage Radio Network. I am interested in hearing about the upcoming Young Horse Symposium to be held in September in Massachusetts. I want to know more about the correct fundamental system for starting young horses. I would like to hear specifics about how often to work a 3-year-old under saddle and how long sessions should be. My 3-year-old is going well under saddle, but I need to know where to go from here. Would it be a good idea to let her have time off this winter? I would like to start showing her next year. I have many questions, and probably your listeners will also, from Sarah. Sarah might be a good one to get on the show here at some point, and let her ask the questions of you guys in person. But doesn't it depend? What little I know, doesn't it depend on the horse really at 3 years old?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, big time.
This is why the questions about young horses is there's almost no I mean, there's some guidelines that we go by, but there's almost no wrong answer sort of thing, because every single horse, I mean, we know this, that every single horse is an individual. And for sure, when you start them, they're just their own horse a little bit. And you got to work, be able to assess each one. And
Okay, but stop there. Let me jump in for Sarah.
Okay.
Because I know virtually nothing, so Sarah knows a lot more than I do. But
that's why we love having you here, Glenn.
Because I know nothing. So if I was Sarah, I'd come back and say, okay, but how do I know? If it depends on the individual horse, which it does, how do I know that I'm not pushing my horse too hard? How do I know that?
Right.
Well, I think your horse tells you. I mean, I think like where Philip was going with this is, we go to a conference every year to talk about 3-year-olds and young horses. And, even trainers sometimes have to step back and say, okay, well, how do I know? And I can tell you a little bit. I this year and this summer, I've been working with my 2 3-year-olds. I just sold my 1 3-year-old, but she was wonderful. We had her since she was born here. So I've had her whole life, and she's been in some sort of training, and that's in quotation marks. I mean, training for a young horse may be that they come up and they get groomed and bathed and walking around the ring.
Is
and
training.
You take him for a power walk. Yeah.
Right. Power walk in the ring with other horses, or you walk them over poles, or, so there's lots of stuff you can do before they turn 3. But so she was ready. We took her June 1st, she went to the trainers and she was ready. I mean, we backed her as a 2-year-old actually last winter. And she was great. She was ready. It was no problem. We did 10 rides on her, really just sit on her. So she knew sort of what that was all about. And in June, she went to the trainer, and at the end of July, she walked, trotted, and cantered. She did a little jump. She was ready to sort of go to horse shows, and she did get sold to a wonderful young lady who will have her this winter, and I'm hoping she'll get a little bit of time off. If I had kept her, she would have gotten a little bit of time off this fall / winter when it was really cold and yucky. I probably would have turned her out for a month or 2, just because she was great. She was so far ahead. And then I have my young man who is 3, and I bought him. He's a Riviano colt. He was actually a stallion, and now he's a gelding. So when we gelded him, the vet's like, he has to exercise because of the surgery. So we did a bunch of lunging with him because we had to. He had to. I wasn't ready to break him the day after the surgery myself. So did a lot of lunging with him, did a lot of groundwork. And then it became very apparent he needed a job. He was kind of bored with lunging. He was kind of bored with in-hand work. I had the mounted police. I have the mounted police come and work with all my young ones. So they walk over tarps, and, they have ropes on them, and, they do all kinds of desensitization work with them. But it was becoming apparent he wanted a real job. So he just went last week to really get started. So those are 2 very different individuals. One was ready probably early spring to go and get started. And that was the filly. And I'm not saying boys, anything between the boys or the girls, but my young man was far less mature and still is less mature than the 3-year-old filly.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common. I think the fillies grow up a little earlier, and the geldings or the stallions take a little bit longer. I think that's pretty normal. So, yeah, I mean, I was talking a little bit about guidelines. I think, consistency is so important when you're starting a young horse. So, I think 5-6 days a week, no problem, right? But keep the sessions a little bit short, because their attention span, I mean, they're like kids a little bit. Their attention span's a little bit short. They can't go forever. So if you have a 3-year-old going under saddle, I think somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes would be kind of a long ride or a long session with a young horse. 5 to 6 days a week is great. And then for us up north, I think kind of they have January, February off for sure. Sometimes December and March as well. It depends. Like if I'm going into November, I'm thinking this horse is going great. I'm loving what's happening. Everything is great. Then boom, December outside and it's a little bit safety thing too, because, we ride in the indoor, and a lot of snow and ice and these conditions can be very scary for a young horse. So, I try and give them off a little bit those times. It's also very cold. And so then the consistency can become a problem. I don't work horses, when it's super, super cold, or if we're having a blizzard outside, there's not a lot of point to trying to ride in the arena when there's so many distractions. So then I can't be as consistent as I want to be. So they might as well be out and just be horses or be turned out and spend the winter a little bit that, and then bring them back in their 4-year-old year, in March or April, as the weather starts to turn back again. The horses, even the older horses, are a little nervous, a little bit, it's hard to work them in the winter. So, yeah, I think, the weather can be a little bit dependent on that, where you live in the States or in Canada, can give you some guidelines about the training as well. So, hopefully we're answering some of the questions for Sarah. Anything else you want to add to that there, Reese? Sorry.
Well, no, I think you did a good job. I mean, again, you really have to listen to your young horse and really decide. I've had some that 4 days a week is good for them, or I have some that they need to work every day, because they can't really remember if they have time off, what's going on. So I think they tell you, and you have to listen and be aware of what your horse is and know your horse. And the other thing we didn't mention is the vet work. You need to make sure that there's, that all their bones and everything are okay, and they've been checked out by the veterinarian, I think, is important. Are their knees closed and that type of thing, depending, and how are they growing, and so you've got all those options too. So it is tough, and like I said, Philip and I, we get together with a group of trainers every year, and we talk just about this very thing, because I think
it's so important for them to get a great basis for their training. I mean, that takes them through their entire life, right, and their entire competition career, and to give them a really great start is so important. And that's why we spend a lot of time talking to people about it and talking to trainers about it, because it's not something you just want to glaze over. So if you're having problems with a young horse, don't wait months to try and fix it or try to get an expert in. Just talk to your vet right away, talk to your trainer right away, and I think the last point I just thought about when Reese was talking is be careful. I think I see this a lot of over lunging on a small circle with young horses. And I think that's detrimental to their health, to their joints, to their tendons and stuff. So if I could tell give any advice to somebody, try not to do a ton of lunging and make sure the circles stay as big as the space that you can, because chasing around on a tight circle is really, really bad, and I've seen it a lot. So
that's a really good point.
Yeah, that's my 2 cents about that. And we love the questions, we love the emails. So, and maybe we didn't cover something that you'd like to ask a little more about, Sarah, send us another email. We're great. We'd love to answer them and to talk about it. And maybe we get a young horse specialist on about a specific problem. We'd love to do that for you. So.
That sounds great. Well, everybody, you can find our show notes and links to today's guests on our website at dressageradio.com. You can like us on Facebook. Just search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
You can find me at philipparksequestrian.com, and my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week for allowing us to put on a great show. And don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
And let me jump in there and say there's 2 new shows on the network this month. Brand new shows. Blaze Kids Radio, which is a show for kids. That's our first one that we're doing. That's kids. It's a lot of fun, a lot of... it's done by Blaze Magazine. The publishers of Blaze Magazine have been doing that for 10 years and have a bunch of people that subscribe to the magazine, and they're doing a great job with it. It allows us to be a little more fun with sound effects and music and stuff. Cool. And it's very interesting. We've had a lot of adults commenting on it that they like it too. So they've learned something, and there's the publisher of Blaze Kids magazine is one of the co-hosts, along with a 12-year-old girl is one of the co-hosts. So that
not a pony crazy girl.
Yes, a pony crazy girl who actually just got her first horse, and it was a mini. So cool. She just got it last week, cute. And every week she gives us an update on her mini. But also, there's a second new show. It's the first original co-host at the Horse Radio Network, Helena of the Stable Scoop Radio Show, has started another show with her friend Sissy, and it is called Chasing a Fox in a Little Black Dress, and it is a show about fox hunting. So fox hunting and fashion and all of that kind of thing. So that one is also on the Horse Radio Network. And you can find all of these shows by going to our apps. Download it at the iOS or Android App Store. Search for Horse Radio Network. We've had thousands of people downloading, and it looks like people are listening, and we really haven't had too much trouble with it. So it's probably the best way to listen is just by downloading the app to your phone.
Well, everybody, keep your heels down and your shoulders back, and we'll talk to you soon.